So again, yeah, good morning everyone. We trust you had some fun, rest, food, drink, whatever floats your boat yesterday. I would have loved some sleep, but you know, that will come one day. So we had a great day yesterday, I think. We learned a lot. There's a lot of interesting dynamics, but there's much more science to share today. I just want to run through what's got coming up for day two. I will very briefly summarize what those crazy kids in the eCOA Consortium have been up to in the last 12 months. Then we'll move on to a session led by Ebony, using patient experience data to inform value assessment for access decision making before the break / everyone rushes to check out. 10:30, navigating methodological challenges in rare disease clinical trials, lessons from real world case studies. And then we'll have a bit of a wrap up. Actually, no, we've got another one. Multidisciplinary teams form a comprehensive approach to digitally derived endpoints, led by Cheryl. Then we'll wrap up, and then there will be a box lunch available for those that have to escape, and those that have Oh, Cheryl. Okay. Cheryl did not drop an entire cup of coffee on the floor. It did not happen. Highlight of the day. Thank you, Cheryl. Okay. Yeah, and for those that have already pre-registered for it, the eCOA Forum will... And Sarah, if... the eCOA Forum is going to be in where the lunch sitting area was, so in the junior ballroom, okay? Again, for those who have pre-registered, please, we're looking forward to... Got about 70-odd people for that one, so it could be a lot of fun. Okay, so what have the eCOA Consortium been up to? There we go. Okay, the standard disclaimer applies. The slides here are going to be a little different to the excellent slides that my colleagues Sonia and Lindsay put together, a little bit more general, I think, really, but we've had certainly a significant change in our membership over the last 12 months. A number of organisations moved, some changed by acquisition, WCG in particular being acquired by Clario last year. But we're delighted to have a couple of new types of stakeholder, if you will. Our membership is quite broad in terms of we have the CROs, the major CROs, we have major eCOA and technology platform type providers, but we're also really interested to have companies like Vector Psychometrics, RJ's organisation, and others that have joined us in the last year or so. Yeah, but we're continuing to kind of recruit and do a bit more to kind of support these kind of 7 different things, which are essentially our mission statements, if you will, for what we want to do for the industry. On the 1st of April, we had our 15th birthday. So we have, so thank you so much, thank you. We are officially a stroppy teenager, which is kind of ironic because I've got one of those at home, a stroppy 15-year-old boy. So we are going to be doing a little bit of promotion of this, and we thought it was something really worth celebrating because there's been so much evolution of the COA program as a whole, but also the other consortia, like PCE Consortium moving to a different name, expanding remits. We kind of felt it was like to sort of celebrate how the eCOA Consortium has evolved since it started as the ePro Consortium in 2011. What the job of the ePro Consortium then is very different to what we do now, but there's some consistency there also as well. So look out for the bulletin when that comes up. We've got some lovely video vignettes from people who have been involved from the very beginning. I don't know if Jean Patty made it here today. I don't know if he's planning to come, but he's one of those people that was there from the very beginning. So we're delighted to make this sort of celebration. Some highlights. Now, because I'm last in terms of giving the update, my colleagues have already referenced some of our collaborations, so I won't waste your time in repeating them. But I think this is an interesting one to share, wrestling with regulation. The whole thing around using the European Union's clinical trial information system, which is governed by the clinical trial regulation, has been something that clinical trial sponsors have been wrestling with since it was introduced. So we felt, a couple of years ago actually, that we needed to have some commentary that really looked at what is the truth about this. So when you have to submit for a clinical trial, there's 2 parts to the system, CTIS as it's called. Some of you may be aware of this. And there's a kind of assumption, I think, a risk-based assumption that everything has to be submitted, translated screenshots have to be submitted. It's not the truth. It's just not the case. So we wrote this paper, also have Valdo Arnara, some of you will remember, who retired at the beginning of this year. I think it was the last piece of work he was involved in. So the paper came out in March, and this is the nature of dealing with commentary on regulation. It changes. So we published this paper out, and on the left-hand side, UDRELEX Volume 10 questions Q&A document, which is something that the European Union, the European Commission put out to kind of fill the gaps around the regulation. It's a really helpful document that makes explicit reference to what the needs and requirements are. So we wrote our paper based on the left-hand side version, which was published a couple of years ago. 3 weeks after it was published, the second version came out. And it kind of, there is a very good chunk of our paper that is still relevant, but it kind of shows you that it is a live situation. We have to kind of wrestle with it. But I do think it's kind of worth pointing out for those that operate in Europe, please take a look at this, because on the right-hand side, the EMA have been very clear now what they expect in terms of submission of patient-facing documents, i.e. if they support a primary or secondary endpoint. Nothing else is expected in Part 1. There is no legal requirement for translations. There is no legal requirement for translations. The facts are there, so hopefully we can make some better decisions in terms of how we go through submission. In terms of trying to provide resources in general to the industry, we managed to get our FAQs out. Again, thanks to Elisa's stellar leadership, we managed to get them on a web page. They're a little tricky to find at the moment, which isn't great, but we're going to fix that. We're going to make it something that's, again, that sort of resource where we feel we need to get a common understanding. We've talked, I think, a lot in the last day or so about using common language, trying to understand, to interpret things in a sort of consistent fashion. So the eCOA FAQs will continue to be developed. We're actually trying to get a mechanism whereby people could submit ideas for FAQs that we could take back to the consortium, have a discussion about, and then present a kind of plan forward for it. So please take a look at the link. Again, we'll be doing, I guess, a bit of re-promotion of this, Elisa. I think it's probably going to be necessary, isn't it? So, really excited about this. DHTs is an extremely important thing to CPAF as an organisation. Obviously, within the eCOA consortium, you would have known companies like Ametris, like Cambridge Cognition, others, Clario, have digital health technology capabilities. But what we are very clear on is that there is a big gap between when you build a DHT and how you actually get it used, and what's required in terms of evidence. What's the next step to expand DHT usage? We've heard from Michelle and others within FDA that there's a clear appetite to make this happen, but what we're thinking within the eCOA consortium is to take our membership that have a very strong interest in DHTs and really try to understand what the gaps are and what we can do within the eCOA consortium, but also as part of CPAF's broader DHT initiative to try and take these valuable technologies forward. So we're looking at kind of creating a sort of sub-consortium within the eCOA consortium for our members that operate in this space, doing the same things that we've done historically in terms of best practice development, standardization, education. That's all going to be part of that, but also just to go to that next level in terms of what the DHT group need, and ultimately to feed in what Cheryl will be leading within the organization, the broader DHT coalition, which is still being very much defined, right? There's a lot of discussion still to have, but this is the entry point to it. So keep an eye on that, because that's something we'll be looking to promote and hopefully generate some really interesting output from. We've talked, Sonia did it again. Sonia's slides just shame mine beyond beliefs, but Sonia and Lindsay touched on a few things, like event-driven e-diaries. You heard from Flo yesterday talking about flexible approaches. We referenced during the eCOA session, a project that's run for a long time, but is actually pretty much a couple of weeks away from formally wrapping up. We'll probably do a webinar around that. I wanted to just to celebrate one thing, that a project that I've been banging on about during this session for the last few years is translations and licensing management. Apart from the fact we should have done that the other way around, it should have been licensing and translations management. It's been a long journey to get this project to the stage it's at, but we're seeing the end of the road. Lisa, again, is taking ownership of developing a microsite that's going to be dedicated to the resources, principally from the TLM project. There's a lot there. Some of this work was done a couple of years ago, to be honest, but it's taken time to get to the approval stage and the stage where we can actually build something fit for purpose that will circulate these resources. So, again, great collaboration there, and also included ISOQOL's TCA special interest group as well. So we're looking forward to seeing those get out. We're hoping to get the microsite launched in Q3 and do some promotion around that. The accessibility of ePros is another thing which, again, Flo has done a great job of leading one of the outputs from that, which will be submitted for peer review publication. Connected to the accessibility project, we have two outputs from that. One is a white paper, which is also going to be published at a similar time on our own website as well, so please look out for those. I mentioned the COA Measure Owners Forum yesterday. Again, this has been a really exciting thing to see get up and running. I got a chance to meet with a couple of the measure owners I'd never met with before yesterday. Wonderful to see them here. And we've got big ambitions for where this can go in terms of trying to interrogate all the things we talked about yesterday in our session around, contacting measure owners, what it is to access licenses. We're going to talk about costs. We kind of got to go there in as agnostic a manner as we can, but understanding what it means to buy or acquire a library license, what it means to smaller eCOA providers to deal with that in terms of the scale of the funds involved. It's challenging. So we want to have, again, trying to get that weight of opinion, understanding that there's some things could happen. We've already had some wins actually from this already. And if I may, I hope, Sonia, this isn't embarrassing in any way, but you're part of this as a measure owner, not as a contributor to the steering committee. But Sonia's been part of that dialogue of thinking where we might need to do a little more in terms of frequently asked questions on websites where you go and acquire a license for a measure. And that's something that Sonia's already started to examine from a CPAR perspective. So it's showing it's a win, and we'll take it, but others have had the same conversation about what are we doing as measure owners to make it easy to access our information. We're really excited about the eCOA scientific strategy. The first effort is actually in the scoping phase right now, so I love an acronym. eCOAST, eCOA, and sensor-based DHTs. We're going through a process at the moment of identifying and reviewing a range of hypotheses that were proposed to try and look at a scientific project that will generate empirical data that will actually support the combination of these two data streams, eCOA and a sensor-based DHT. We will also be doing, and I think Lindsay referenced this briefly yesterday, that we're going to be doing a scientific project in the domain of accessibility. Accessibility is becoming an expanding importance in terms of eCOA and DHT use more broadly. We're not at the scoping stage for that right now, but I'm really excited that this is going to be, I think, the first time all three consortia would have collaborated. So we're going to be looking at accessibility in the domain of rare diseases, but also trying to do something that maybe have some broader applicability as well. So that's going to be an exciting piece of work. We need to get back to doing a bit more science, was kind of our feeling, as opposed to just focusing on operational recommendations. Oh, yeah, I didn't realize I had a slide on this. So this is everything we've got coming up in terms of, you can see the sorts of things we're talking about in the future, negotiations, translations, version control, pricing, as I said. We had a great chat in our last meeting, and Pam's doing a fantastic job of PMing on this one. We had a good chat about sample copies, how challenging it can be to even get access to them and how they're managed. And to hear measure owners telling us about the sort of lengths they go to protect their IP was really quite revealing. Okay, in the interest of time, we had two great face-to-face meetings. The face-to-face things are very, very central to our identity, where we get together and we're honest. And I think anyone who was in Dublin, and we're delighted that ICON, one of our key members, hosted us at their HQ. And Dublin was very popular with some of my colleagues, it's fair to say. Right, Lisa? It was legendary in terms of it got a bit spicy. When we talked about study startup, and again, what we had as a session yesterday, we touch on every system involved in this and where you possibly add friction where it's unintentional, but we've got to be making sure we don't make it harder than it should be. And we had a great chat on Wednesday. Again, thanks to our TransPerfect colleagues who hosted us, just a short walk away. It was kind of slightly traumatic in different ways, right, Pam? We had some challenges with catering, let's put it that way, which made some very hangry people at some stage. But a great discussion, lots of candid opinion, and really thinking about how we move forward. This is probably a bit tenuous, right? This is something of a right turn in this. Well, I've got 1 minute left, but I want to take a moment to... Star Wars fans in the room? Must be a few Star Wars fans. I'm not big on sci-fi, I'm big on sci-fi, but you know Tatooine, the two suns? I wanted to use that image here, but then I read Disney's copyright. And I found out that this is a real-life version. Kepler 453 is an exoplanet. It has two suns. And I wanted to use that metaphorically speaking, because in real life, I have two SONS, two suns. And in my working life, I have two sons, SUNS as well. I'm very fortunate, and I make no apologies for wanting to celebrate the fact I work with two incredible people. They are my sons. SUNS. Thank you both.